No, I'm not Santa Claus, but I do come bearing gifts. The Premier League is back, the international break is over, and it's Arsenal against Tottenham in the North London derby. This is the Arsenal preview show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal preview show. Joining you every single pre-match day. Joining us always is our members from the Discord server to talk about the next Arsenal fixture, which, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is the North London derby. Arsenal against Tottenham in enemy territory. I'm very happy to be joined by some fantastic guests from our Discord server. First of all, it's been a while, but it's good to have him back. It's Paul. How you doing, Paul? You good, Joel?
I'm good. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Loving the Jamaica-esque Arsenal shirt, of course. It is
one of my favourites.
It is one of the best. Definitely one of the best. Also joining us in one of the brand new away kits this season, is Damien. How you doing, mate? You good, Joel?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Really looking forward to the Premier League being back.
Indeed, yes. I think everybody is. The weather's got really chilly here in the UK all of a sudden. I think we've got a little bit of SAD going around. The mood is low, and I think the Premier League returning is it's hopefully going to bring that back.
Good pick
Gareth,
me up.
Sorry, Damien, say again.
Did you say it's good pick me up?
It is. It genuinely is. Just having normal football back is definitely it refocuses everyone, and I think gets us all singing under the same banner. Garrett, how you doing, my friend? Good, you well?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. It's been a while, and yeah, the international break as an Irish fan is not been great. So looking forward for it to be over, and yeah, big game, very big game. So we'll have a chat about that.
Indeed. And the reason why we're doing this game, speaking of Ireland, is, of course, that I'll be flying there tomorrow, which is why we're doing this today and not tomorrow, because I'm over across the smaller pond for a wedding. Of course, one of our listeners, Owen Young, of course, who you know very much. You should know, of course, from his time on the show and, of course, his time with the Gooners Pod Boys as well. And I'm seeing Mike over there. I don't know why you'd invite Mike to a wedding. It was a mistake taking him to mine. So I'm not sure why Owen's done it. But it's going to be a good laugh, I'm sure. And we'll update you. And I am aiming to do a Sunday morning 8 a.m. show. But after an Irish wedding, that may come with an added element of tiredness. Is the polite word I'm going to use. But thank you, as always, for our fantastic panel of guests for coming on, and to our chat box as well. I can see all of you, and I'll say hello as we go through today's show. But Paul, we'll start with you, mate. How are you feeling ahead of this massive game?
On Monday, getting the Odegaard news, I was feeling a bit. And then by yesterday, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, actually, it's not as bad as what we think. On Monday, it was just like, the league is over. I feel like crap, And then yesterday, I started to make sense of it and think, well, they've got Richarlison out. They've got Dominic Solanke out.
Maybe.
Mickey van der Ven is a doubt.
Yeah.
I think Yves Bissouma is a doubt.
Yep.
So I'm looking at that and thinking, you know what? They've got their issues as well.
And it's giving us perhaps a little bit more confidence than we had, because it's not always just about Arsenal. It may seem like it sometimes, but there are other.
I was looking at it and I'm thinking, if you're a Spurs fan and you're sitting there and it's like, and then you're looking at our team and you're thinking, well, yeah, they're light, and then you go, we've got a rubbish defence. We've got a high line. They've got Saka. They've got possibly Sterling and
Martinelli.
You're going to be a little bit,
I think I put a tweet out, Damien. I read it out this morning, actually, if you were listening, the one about what our team lined up like in 2022 when we went there needing to get a result to qualify for the Champions League, when you had Cedric, you had Holding, you had El Neni. This is 2 years ago, that team. And now Arsenal have Rice out. They've got Odegaard out. Of course, we'll come on to those absences shortly. But it does, I think, in some ways, when you look at the difference between the two lineups that Arsenal can put out, even with those injuries and even with potentially Calafiori and potentially Jesus even not there, if indeed that's the case, we can put out an immensely more improved side even without those players available.
Yeah, absolutely. And like earlier on when I was working out what my team would be that you're going to later, I've wrote it down on a notepad and I've looked at it and I'm like, actually, do you know what? For a team that's missing its entire midfield, that's actually a very decent team, you know. And I think when you look at our squad now, we are very much in a position where we have 2 players for every position on the pitch, you know. And I think there's a lot more confidence in the team now with players missing them. Like you said, there was 2 years ago when we was fielding Cedric and God knows what else.
And you look at as well, as Paul brought up, the absences that Tottenham might have. We'll learn more from both Arteta and Postecoglou tomorrow when they undertake their press conferences. It might be that some players we thought are out are actually here, and vice versa, of course. So lots can change in 24 hours in football, which is up to a game. But Garrett, there was the immediate kind of frustration and pain and especially pain when it comes to what Ødegaard suffered, but the frustration of the Rice absence, the frustration of Ødegaard's injury, but maybe as Paul and Damien pointed out, a bit of a step back and look at the bigger picture and realise actually we're still a very decent side.
Yeah, 100%. And to be honest, I was looking back and kind of hearing people talk about it. Like last year, I think Ødegaard away at Spurs didn't have the best game because his best attributes weren't needed. You know, we soaked up the pressure, let them kind of get in or about us at midfield, but we broken them. And to be honest, I expect the exact same this year. I think it's the way to get at them. And with the addition of Sterling, as we can talk about later on, I think that's perfectly set up. You know, he's the perfect man for that stuff. So, yeah.
Absolutely. The news this morning, though, I think perhaps helped in some ways for, I'd say, 99% of the fan base lift their mood, Paul, as Mikel Arteta was indeed announced to have signed a brand new 3-year deal with Arsenal. And going into, of course, this game, but we've got the return of the Champions League and the Man City game this week. It is, I think, very well timed to have announced this here for the players to give them a boost and give the fan base a bit of a lift as well after this international break. But obviously the debate will continue to rage about whether or not Arsenal should have given him a new contract. But where are you sitting with Arteta and his new deal?
I think, as you said, it's perfect time to announce it. I can imagine that things were a little bit unsure around the camp on sort of Tuesday and Wednesday, and he's gone, give me that contract, let's lighten the mood. You know what I mean? Let's get this signed. You know, I think it's great. I think it's, it can only be good for us. And and I think he's done that, you know, on purpose. Broke it now, you know, lighten the mood and get, you know, everyone sort of a bit more sort of ready for it, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Damien, where are you sitting with this one?
I'm really happy he's got the new contract. I did say after the game against Brighton that the perfect time to announce Arteta's new contract will be at some point during the international break. Personally, I think it's quite a strategic move from Arsenal when they've announced it. I think they've obviously known that Arteta is going to be signing this new contract, and they've just kind of looked at it and said, do you know what, now would be perfect. The fan base is a bit down because of their injuries and this, that and the other. Obviously, it gives the players a lift, as Paul said as well. And I think, you know, we've shown improvements year on year with Mikel. And as long as we carry on getting them improvements and now start to win trophies, then I'm happy for him to have the new contract.
Absolutely. Just a brief one before I go to Garrett. It's nice seeing a lot of people in the chat box saying they're tuning in for the first time. Of course, we don't typically do our shows at this period of the day. So a lot of our listeners over in the western areas of the world, in the United and Canada as well. It's fantastic to see all of you in the chat. So thank you. Make sure if you haven't already done so to drop a like, of course, as well. There's no 1K everyday challenge of our evening shows, but it's still appreciated for the all the appreciation that you do all show to these episodes. Garrett, Arteta's new deal. Good, bad, somewhere in the middle. What is it?
No, it's all good for me. I think it really was a matter of time. I didn't see him, you know, letting it expire, and the club I didn't think would really let that happen. As Paul and Damien have said, we've been improving year on year. The trophies are yet to come, absolutely, but I think they will come. So for me, I think it was just a matter of time, and it was definitely strategic. I went to announce it, and I think it was the perfect time to rally the troops. So. Yeah, all good on my end.
Yeah, it did feel, I think, ultimately like that the timing of it was strategic, and this was the best time I think they could have announced it. Arteta already had said, you know, in press conferences that after the deadline day had finished, the contract would be the next thing. That he'd always been hinting towards that was going to be the case, and I think it was a very quick and simple negotiation that wouldn't have taken too long at all to ratify and to complete. And I think we've seen that with the completion of that deal in the last week plus. But there is obviously still fans that need to be, Paul, convinced that this is the right choice. Have you been in any way surprised about any amounts of levels of negativity or kind of debate? I know we had a fair few people in the chat box and in the comment section as well after this morning's show that weren't too happy about it. But can you empathise them at all? Or do you find it hard to see where they're coming from?
I can't empathise at all. I just think, when a fan's gone, I don't want Mikel Arteta at our club when he first joined. And after the first year, he's got to get out his rubbish. And then they can't go back on it. They can't go, oh, it's wrong. He's not rubbish. He's really good.
Yeah.
So now they've got to find other ways of, sort of making it rubbish. I even see someone say something about, what was it, on Twitter yesterday, and I was looking at it and I was thinking,
everything's really sensible there. How could they on earth have said anything that would have been?
I can't remember what it was, and I was like, how is that anyway related to Mikel Arteta? I can't even remember the quote, but it just went through my head, and I thought, should I reply? And I thought, no, he's doing it just to wind you up.
Yeah.
Right, he's got to be, because nobody can be that stupid. And yeah. But yeah, no, I think that they're just so set in their thing they can't go back on it, and that's where they're coming from. They don't really believe it.
Demi, I know that obviously we've had some difference of views at times, and you've run into the phone-in shows, and we talked about different topics surrounding Arsenal. Do you empathise with the view, or are you similar to Paul, where you just can't really see where it's coming from?
I don't get it, to be honest. Some people I think just are happy being miserable, and that some people do have the outlook that it's better to be pessimistic because then you're never going to be disappointed, and
yeah,
that's about the most kind of explanation I can actually give to the way they're thinking. But like what Paul was saying, I've been on Twitter before and I've gone into a comment section saying, I'm not going to disappear down this rabbit hole because I'm never going to get out if I do. Because like Paul said, I just can't understand the thought process with people. I support Arsenal. I love Arsenal, and the enjoyment I'm getting from the club, especially in the last few years, is so appreciated considering the levels we've been down to the years before that, towards the end of Arsene Wenger's reign and Unai Emery and all that sort of stuff. And I'm actually really enjoying watching Arsenal, and it's bringing back the memories of the early Arsene Wenger times and, the George Graham times, things like that, where you could actually enjoy watching the club play. You could go to work on a Monday morning with your head held high, not feeling ashamed because your team is the only one out of all your mates and your work colleagues that's lost, and for that, I appreciate Mikel. He does need to start winning trophies now. That is a fact. You can't just keep being second and not doing anything in the cup competitions. But yeah, I'm loving watching Arsenal, and I don't get why you would want to be negative when you can choose to be positive.
And I think it's become a choice at this stage because I just don't see how you can look at Arsenal going from the perspective of where we were when we were 11th, when we took over, and then you move forward a season, you get a trophy. Of course, that's something that's been missing, and I think is needed, of course, to really solidify Arteta's success at Arsenal to this point. But every year forwards, it's been more points, more goals, less goals conceded. We're moving in that direction and getting ever so closer to that end goal. And I suppose, Garrett, the last question on this topic before we get back to the derby is that some people did question the timing of this. I know that we've all agreed that it was the right time for him to do that, but some people feel that they would have rather have waited until the end of the season to see if he would have got that trophy to then justify getting a deal. But for you, was it ever a case if he had to win something last year to justify a trophy, or that you would have rather have seen it waited until the end of the season if he picks up a trophy, or did you always feel as though what he's done so far has earned him this next deal?
No, for me, I think what he's done so far, 2 consecutive title challenges. Like the year before last, obviously, we fell off the end, but last year we took it right to the last day. And bear in mind, the second half of the season, we were, drew 1, if I'm not mistaken. That was it. Drew 1.
We're in the same points tally we had at the start of last season.
Yeah, the second half of the season was unbelievable last season. So no, for me, it was earned. And look, if we waited till the end of this season, that sends a pretty bad message to him as well. So I think to secure our own security, like from the club's point of view, you need to get those things sorted soon. So yeah, no, for me it was earned, and it was good time to get it announced.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately it's weird that we're going to not even see a home game for another 2 and a bit weeks, because we've got obviously these games away in the Champions League. The next chance we're going to see Arteta kind of shown the appreciation of his new deal at home will be the League Cup game against Bolton. That's the next opportunity we're going to have, and then there's not a home Premier League game until the end of this month at home to Leicester as well. So I look forward to being in the Emirates for those games and seeing the reception to that. But those away fans, we know the away fans of Arsenal are always fantastic. They're always carrying the noise with them into these games, and I'm hoping that this news does help in some ways up the ante even more. There are, though, Paul, plenty of interesting questions with this derby, and in particular points of the team. The 3 areas, of course, going through the defence, the midfield to the forward line. So you two know where I'm coming next with those questions. But in defence, Paul, I think obviously Saliba, Gabriel, White picks itself. But at the left back, and you can feel free to spoil part of your lineup if you like, but there is something of a debate still, I think, about the left back position. Timber's come in. He's looked decent, I think, but there are still, I think, elements of his game that are very much related to the fact he's come back off a very long layoff from not playing a lot of football. You got Zinchenko, I thought in the first game of the season was pretty good and offered a lot going forwards. And actually, when we switched to Timber, it felt like the left-hand side suffered a bit offensively at Aston Villa, and I think against Brighton, especially on that left-hand side, we also suffered a bit. And then you've got Calafiori, who we still obviously need a little bit of an update on regarding his injury, but hopefully it's not too serious, as was said after he'd returned to London, who is also another option and gives you a bit of kind of the best of Zinchenko, perhaps the best defensively of Timber as well. So where do you sit on how we approach the left-back role for this derby?
I kept thinking about Calafiori and thinking how much I'd love to see him in the team. And then I'm thinking North London derby. Now, I know Timber's never played in one, but he has been in the stadium when we've played one. So he kind of gets the atmosphere a bit. He has played the last couple of games, so there must already be starting to get a bit of a chemistry going. Whereas you're putting in someone who hasn't really played with them in a match situation. I know he's come on as a sub, but there can't be the same chemistry build up. So I've gone with Timber over Calafiori, just simply for that. Yeah, and he's a beast.
Yeah, he is a bit of a beast. Like defensively, I remember that Community Shield game against Man City, and obviously we conceded as soon as he came on the field and Tierney came on. But I felt as though in that game that you saw a player that was going to bring Arsenal, the defensive security on the left that we had to a degree lacked at times. I know Kivior has offered a bit and Tomiyasu's offered a bit, and it's 2 more potential options when they're available to Kivior. Is Tomiyasu not at the moment? And Tierney, of course, is back outside and training to the point where you have 6 potential players that can play in that left-back position, which is kind of crazy, but it's just the reality of where the squad's at right now, and also the reality of Arteta's strategy to bring in players that can play a number of positions as well. It leads us to have multiple options in other areas. I think he'd like to have 6 options in centre midfield at the moment, Damien, but that's not a reality for him. The midfield, I think, is in some ways the easiest area to pick because you haven't really got too much choice. But in some ways, there are options that fans have put forward. Nwaneri as a player that some fans have suggested should get his chance with Ødegaard being out. Kai Havertz is another option. I think we'd all agree, and I don't mind spoiling the fact, all of us have gone with Partey and Jorginho as our deeper midfielders for this game. But it is that kind of Ødegaard replacement that's created the most debate, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I probably changed who was going to be in the Ødegaard position 2 or 3 times before I settled on who I eventually went with. And it's mainly because what Ødegaard brings to the team, we haven't got anybody else in the squad that brings everything that he does. We've got someone that can bring the press that he does. We've got someone that can bring a level of creativity that he does, but we don't have anyone that can do both. And, I kind of looked at it and I thought, you need someone in that midfield that's going to lead the press like Ødegaard does. But at the same time, where's your creativity coming from in the centre? because if you're relying on Thomas Partey, for example, to be your defence splitting passer of the ball, you're probably not going to get very far with that. So I think that's where I think a lot of people are hoping that Nwaneri can be that player. But I just think this stage in his career, it's a bit too much to expect him to just jump into a North London derby and then a game against Manchester City and potentially even a game against Atalanta. You know, I'm all for let's see how he does sink or swim type thing, but you don't want the boy to drown and never get recovered.
Yeah, no, I think you raise a really good point, and I think it will be an area that maybe Arsenal look at in the future, in future windows. Obviously, it's with Jorginho and Partey's contracts expiring, I expect big upheaval in midfield, you know, still moving forwards. And that's just a reality of, you know, having players that are reaching the end of their time with the club because of, you know, of the older age bracket in a footballer's career. But also, you know, this pathway for Nwaneri that's been opened up. People feel as though we shouldn't have loaned out Fabio Vieira, who, by the way, is currently wouldn't be available for this game because he's injured and actually isn't going to be available for Porto at the moment. I personally feel as though that, you know, attacking midfield wasn't necessarily an area I was looking at because you've got Odegaard, because you've got Miracle Moreno, who was, you know, coming in at the time fully fit and ready to go and not injured. You've obviously got that pathway for Nwaneri that I want to keep to a degree clear. Any minutes that Vieira would have got for me, I would have rather have gone to Nwaneri this season because I just see a better future and a far higher ceiling for him with the minutes that we would have given to Vieira available to Nwaneri. So I don't necessarily disagree too much with how Arsenal have approached it. And the midfield market this summer was not, you know, offering up, you know, the players that I think a lot of the big teams would have liked to have gone for. Hence why Bruno Guimaraes, of course, who maybe was one of them, has stayed where he is with Newcastle. Garrett, just lastly then, front three. Sterling is obviously in the equation. He's been with the Arsenal team over pre-season, over the international break. It's felt like pre-season. But when it comes to, you know, Trossard, Martinelli, Saka, Jesus is coming back. Havertz, for some people, would still start in their front three. How do you think Arteta is going to approach it?
Yeah, for me, I do think Trossard will start up top, 100%. I think he's just very been clinical for us as long as he's been at the club, to be honest. So I think he's probably got to start. I don't think if you were to start Kai up top, I don't know who you put in midfield, that kind of attacking midfield role that kind of gives you a bit more legs. So to be honest, for me, I think Kai can't start up top. He's got to be in the attacking mid role. I think he'll want someone like a Sterling, or, you know, look, an informed Martinelli, 100%. But Martinelli, he's just not in form right now. And I feel like maybe Arteta's looking at Sterling like, look, I know what you can do. You know, he's had a pre-season, he's been looking good. So I think he'll be eyeing up Sterling, to be honest, on that left wing, and look, goes without saying, Saka right wing.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how people's lineups are. And speaking of which, Garrett, we're going straight to yours. And of course, you've put Trossard, Sterling, Havertz, and Saka as your front four, with Trossard in that centre forward role. But talk us through your selections for the rest of the team.
Yeah, so kind of went back and forth like the other guys, Paul and Damien, on the left back. I just think with Calafiori naturally being a left footer, I want to try it, and I do think he will start for City. So I do not want that to be the first time it happens. So I've dropped him in here at left back. Look, it is a big game, that goes without saying, but he's played in big games before. You know, derbies in Italy and stuff like that. So I do think he'll be able to. You know, he won't sink, is what I'm saying. So the back line then, rest of the back line's pretty set. Yeah, like the other guys have gone, Partey and Jorginho. I put them together because I want them to stick close together. I think if spaces open up between them, we could be in a world of trouble. I am slightly worried about Jorginho in the sense that, look, when we have the ball, brilliant, you know, and I think we'll need to absorb pressure, which he's great at, but they'll be on him at Partey like a flash in midfield. So if they can isolate Jorginho, yeah, we're going to be in very big trouble. So yeah, look, he's in there, but that is the one thing. And look, no, I don't think Arteta is naive enough not to recognise that, but it's just the reality of kind of the position we're in. Then Havertz, obviously, in front of those two, I think he's going to give a bit more legs to that midfield, kind of get back, throw in tackles where needs be. And then, yeah, look, I've put Sterling in left wing. I think that pacing behind those kind of out balls from, say, a Partey or a Havertz out that left wing could be perfect. And look, I just think he's more kind of on it than Martinelli at the minute. So, yeah, I think that'll happen. Then, as I said, Trossard up front, good finisher. And can look, him and Havertz will rotate throughout the game. And then, yeah, look, star man for me, Saka. I think it goes without saying, loves goal against Tottenham, and I expect him to score again.
I hope you're right. I do hope you're correct. Damien, you're up next, my friend.
Yeah, so with the defence, I basically just looked at it and thought, with all the changes we've got in midfield, just leave the defence as it is. There's no need to change it when you don't have to. There's enough change going on elsewhere. Partey, Jorginho, I think that basically just picks itself. There's not really anyone else we've got that can play them roles. With Trossard, Havertz, I kind of looked at that and thought, with Sterling there as well, the three of them kind of just swap around with each other. You know, you can have. I don't particularly want Havertz moved from the striker position because he's playing there, he's scoring goals, he's getting assists. Just leave him doing his thing, you know. And if he wants to drop back and Trossard go a bit more forward, or Trossard wants to drift out onto the left and Sterling wants to come into the striker role while Havertz drops back into midfield, they've got the ability to be able to do that, and they can sort out themselves. But I want to see what Sterling can do as well. And I think I think he's got a lot to prove to a lot of people, to Chelsea, to England, to Arsenal, and I think he would probably be a better option than Martinelli out on the left purely because of the form side of things. And this is coming from one of Martinelli's number one fans. I love the guy, but the club comes first, and I just think Sterling, we know what he can do. We've seen it in years gone by. And if he can bring that to Tottenham, Tottenham's defence is not good. Let's be honest, they've not got the greatest defence in the world, whereas we have got one of the best defences. So I've no problem at all with our defence. We just need to get the positions that they line up on correct. And personally, I think that one gives us the best chance.
And Paul?
Yes. Well, I've already explained my defence. Zinchenko, I didn't put Zinchenko.
Oh, this is why I check Paul before. This is why I check.
Timber. I don't know what happened there.
That's all right, mate. He's in. There you go.
Sorry about that. Right. Okay. I like Zinchenko. Right. Okay. Yeah. I spoke about Timber and why I'd keep him there just for the familiarity. I'd have Jorginho and Partey sitting in front of the back four, just to literally shore it all up, because we know they're going to come at us. They're going to be like, just playing a really high line and really coming at us. It's a good idea just to have them just shielding the back four. I think both of them have got the ability to get the ball out when needed. Sterling, I thought more of a number 10 than an 8. Just sitting there behind Havertz. I just got this picture in my head of the ball reaching Jorginho. He slips it through to Sterling. Sterling passes it on to Havertz, runs past him, and Havertz slips him in, and he sticks it in the corner of the net. I've just got this feeling.
Some stats here actually on that. Sterling has played in his career 35 times behind the centre forwards. He's got in those 35 games 10 goals and 8 assists. So it's 1 in 2 goal contribution wise.
That's not bad, is it? I'll put Saka as my star man. I think he's going to be captain. He always does well against Tottenham. I think he's going to be captain. I think he's just going to go out there and say, look, this is my team. Trossard, I am done hard about Martinelli and his pace and getting in behind that eye line and all that, but Trossard's just been that little bit more reliable, hasn't he? And leaving Havertz up front.
Yeah, it seems to be a popular choice amongst you to leave Havertz there. I've switched things a little bit. There are indications that Jesus could be back for this game. Of course, the level of fitness we're completely unaware of. If he is deemed to be fit, I'd start Jesus up top with Havertz playing that second striker role. Trossard on the left and Saka on the right. I always use the example of that Bayer Leverkusen friendly when Jesus, Havertz, and Trossard started together and looked excellent, playing off one another and the combinations of those three. So, against a very high press, high line that we know, as the boys have talked about there, that Spurs deploy, I think that could be potentially a dangerous trio on that side. The rest of the team, I think, is relatively self-explanatory with Jorginho and Partey. White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Raya. Timber, I've gone for over Calafiori. I think that there was actually a point, had Calafiori not got injured with Italy and not be a question mark, we don't know if he's going to be in the squad or not. I think if he'd have been fully fit, I may have lent towards starting Calafiori in this game. But it's just that question mark that's against him at the moment that I can't quite commit to it. But I see, definitely where Garrett's coming from, because he was in my thoughts prior to that issue against France that he suffered. So it's an interesting round, an interesting difference, and it's interesting seeing the same names in people's teams, but in completely different positions in the team, which is, it showcases the depth and the variety and the versatility of the squad that we've got. We're going to go to predictions to round things off, so chat box, get your score lines in there. Paul, we'll start with you. Scoreline and scorers, please.
Going to go 3-0 to
Love it.
Arsenal, obviously. It'd be Saka with 2, and I think that Sterling's going to get 1.
Nice. Damien?
I'm going for 2-1 to Arsenal, Havertz and Gabriel.
And who's scoring for them?
I don't care.
Yep, good answer.
Yeah, I'll go 3-1 as well. I'll go Saka, Sterling, and Havertz.
And who's scoring for Spurs?
We'll see. Hope no one, but if
penalty,
one of ours,
penalty.
That's what it'll be. A penalty. If they do score, probably get their penalty. So
yeah, they do get their penalties. Of course, we'll hear from Ange Postecoglou tomorrow about the updates on Solanke. There might be some feeling that he'll be back. He's only played 1 game this season for them. He looked very rusty, I thought, against Bournemouth, and he looked rusty against us for Bournemouth in pre-season as well. So hopefully, if he does start, he's equally as inaccurate as he was in that game. Fingers crossed, touch woods. Arasilki says 2-0. Keith says 3-0 to the Arsenal. I'm assuming when people put these score lines this way round, I'm assuming that they are in favour of Arsenal. Kwame says 3-0 to Arsenal. Amira says 1-0. Romero, own goal and red card just for the lulz. Just get the 3 points and run away. Rand says 1-0 Havertz. Elliot says 1-0 to the Arsenal. Steve says 3-2 to Arsenal, yet another nail biter. Stu says 3-1, Kai, Saka and Gabriel. Dan's going for a 2-1 to us, Saka and Sterling with the goals. Joe, who is joining us for the first time, I believe, in the live chat box, says 2-1 to the Gunners. Thinking about your point this morning, Tom, about how we lined up at the end of the 21-22 season against Spurs and how much stronger that we are even with these injuries. It is really interesting just looking back, short time as 2 years ago. Mason says 3-0. Arasilki says 2-0 to the Arsenal. Trader says, Mike in the chat says 2-1 Arsenal, Saka and Jesus. And we're going to go for Paul, who says here 2-0, and Elliot says 2-0 Arsenal. Lovely stuff. Thank you for all of you that have tuned in live. Even the resident Spurs fan who's dropped in 31 in the chat. Maybe that's the amount of goals Arsenal might score against them on Sunday. We hope. We can only pray. It's probably more likely to be the number of yellow cards there could be in the game, but that's another story. Thank you so much, as I said before, for tuning in and listening. Do drop a like and subscribe, and please do show plenty of love for my amazing panel of listeners and guests and members, of course. Paul, thank you for your time, mate. Tell people where they can find you.
Well, X, we call it X now, don't we? Granddaddy Gooner, and in the Discord, and I've just started using Threads.
Threads, yes.
Threads.
I think I'm going to start using Threads a lot more, actually.
It's a little bit better than I've found, a little bit less toxic.
Yeah, that's. I keep getting told by people to come over to Threads and start using Threads because it's apparently a lot less toxic than Twitter is. And as I mentioned on the show yesterday, I've taken a complete kind of break. Other than tweeting out shows and videos, I'm just not replying to anything anymore because it's just horrible. So,
well, we've got to say this really quietly because we don't want the idiots to.
True, and they do watch. They hate to watch, is what they do. Damien, thank you so much for your time, mate. Tell people they can find you.
I'm in the Discord to find me in there. Thank you very much for having me on.
Of course, pleasure as always, mate. And Garrett as well. Thank you. It's good to see you, my friend, and tell people they can find you.
Yeah, no, as always, like Damien, Discord, in the Discord there, and yeah, I recommend everyone joins up. It's always a good chat in there. So yeah, no, cheers for having me on, and yeah, hope you get the win.
They're well trained, these bunch. Checks are in the post, of course. But yes, you can, just like these guys, hop onto our preview shows if you're a member of the Discord server, becoming a TGT expert member or TGT ambassador. You might even see some of these familiar faces next February at the live event. I think, Paul and Damien, have you bought your tickets? I think they have. Yes.
Yeah.
Got that.
And Garrett, it'd be a long way for you to come, but maybe you'll make it. I'll have to wait and see. But yes, thank you to all of you who've continued to support. I can tell you what, we are now in single digits for tickets that are left. So not many at all available whatsoever. The link to get your last minute tickets is down in the description. It's February 20th. Next year, Thursday night in London, Angel, the Essex Road at the Old Queen's Head, just like it was in this year's event. So I'm very much looking forward to that again. New panel of guests, new surprises, and very much looking forward to it. So thank you for those that have already got your tickets, because they are and have gone like hotcakes. Hopefully Arsenal can complete their hot streak this Sunday as they take on Spurs, of course. If you've enjoyed the show, drop a like, subscribe, all the usual YouTube-y stuff. And I'll see you again very soon. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal. Oh, and I'm going for a 2-1 win. I didn't say that. 2-1. 2-1 to the Arsenal.